Good morning, you're watching A News. I'm Dilek Tuna. Here are the top stories. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu renewed his vow to return hostages back home. German Chancellor Merz confirms that Western countries no longer impose range limits on arms delivered to Kyiv. Dozens injured after a car ploughs through the crowd in Liverpool. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has renewed his vow to bring home hostages held in Gaza. His remarks came on Jerusalem Day amid conflicting reports over a potential ceasefire.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reaffirmed a key national pledge to return all hostages held in Gaza by Hamas. He made the announcement during a state ceremony on Monday at Ammunition Hill in Jerusalem, marking 58 years since the 1967 war.
We will defeat those who seek our lives. We will bring back all our hostages. We will ensure that Gaza no longer poses a threat to Israel. This mission, including the mission of returning our hostages, accompanies us day by day. It occupies us night by night, including tonight. We are not letting go of it. If we don't achieve it today, we will achieve it tomorrow. And if not tomorrow, then the day after tomorrow. We are not letting go of it.
Netanyahu's remarks come after a Palestinian source said that mediators proposed a 70-day ceasefire and the release of 10 Israeli hostages alongside some Palestinian prisoners. However, U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff later said Hamas had not agreed to the deal. Earlier, Hamas said it's willing to release all remaining hostages and agrees to a permanent ceasefire if Israel fully withdrew from Gaza. Prime Minister Netanyahu has rejected that condition, insisting that any ceasefire must be temporary and linked only to the release of hostages. Tensions in Gaza remain high as Israel reports targeting a Hamas and Islamic Jihad command center, while it says it's attempting to minimize harm to civilians. Meanwhile, aid organizations warn that the humanitarian situation is deteriorating, with critical shortages of food and medicine caused by the ongoing blockade.
Gaza's food production is collapsing, with more than 80% of farmland damaged and most greenhouses destroyed. That's according to the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. Its new report says nearly the entire population faces severe food insecurity, prompting urgent calls for humanitarian aid to prevent famine.
Gaza's ability to produce food is nearing total collapse, with less than 5% of its cropland still usable. That's according to a joint assessment by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations and the UN Satellite Center. The report says that by April this year, more than 80% of farmland has been damaged, and nearly 78% was inaccessible. Only 688 hectares out of more than 15,000 remain available for cultivation. Conditions are especially severe in Rafah and the northern areas, where nearly all farmland cannot be reached. Widespread destruction has also affected greenhouses, with more than 70% damaged. Rafah experienced the sharpest rise in destruction, increasing from just over 57% in December last year to just over 85% in April. In Gaza City, all greenhouses have been destroyed.
As farmers, my family, siblings, and I received a project grant from the FAO in 2021 or 2022 for approximately 8 dunams. That's 8,000 square meters worth of greenhouses. They were installed and we started working on them. But the war disrupted everything. 2,000 square meters of these greenhouses were bulldozed and the remaining 6 were damaged. The water source, which is the well, and the agricultural warehouse, including its contents and inputs, were destroyed.
Agriculture once made up 10% of Gaza's economy and supported more than 500,000 people. Earlier this year, the FAO estimated total losses in the agriculture sector at more than $2 billion, with recovery needs around $4.2 billion. The report says the collapse of the ceasefire has likely pushed those numbers even higher. Meanwhile, a new food security analysis shows the entire population of Gaza, around 2.1 million, is at critical risk of famine. Between the 1st of April and the 10th of May, 93% of people were facing crisis-level food insecurity or worse. Nearly 250,000 were already in Phase 5, classified as catastrophe, where starvation is occurring. That number could rise to 470,000 by September. According to projections, an estimated 470,000 people, or 22% of the population, will face catastrophic food insecurity from May to September 2025. The UN is urging immediate humanitarian access and an end to restrictions to avoid a full-scale famine.
Donald Trump rebuked Vladimir Putin but also criticised Volodymyr Zelensky following the series of aerial strikes in recent days. The White House threatened Moscow with severe consequences. For more on that, we go to Washington and our Obey Shapandar.
President Donald Trump sharply rebuked Russian leader Vladimir Putin over the weekend, following the Kremlin's largest missile and kamikaze drone attack on Kyiv to date. Trump said that he was considering implementing new sanctions on Russia, though he also criticized Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. He has gone absolutely crazy, Trump posted on social media, referring to Putin. The U.S. president said that Putin's attacks on Ukraine were needlessly killing a lot of people. And the U.S. president threatened that if Putin continues to, quote, seek the control of all of Ukraine, then it will lead to the downfall of Russia, as President Trump put it. The Ukrainian Air Force said that Russia had launched hundreds of kamikaze drones and nearly 70 cruise missiles against multiple Ukrainian cities in the span of 2 days. President Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, has met with Putin on 4 occasions since February in Moscow in the hopes of brokering a ceasefire and peace deal. But so far, the Kremlin has not signaled that it is ready to accept an unconditional ceasefire. Meanwhile, Western defense officials believe that Russian armed forces may be preparing for another major offensive into eastern Ukraine. And according to latest Western intelligence estimates, Russia, since the war and invasion began, has lost at least 10,000 ground combat vehicles, including more than 3,000 tanks, as well as losing to approximately 250 warplanes since the war began. And President Trump's recent statements indicate a new level of frustration with Vladimir Putin, as Ukraine's Western allies have said that they have lifted restrictions on the use of military supplies to Ukraine, and that long-range strikes with Western-provided munitions deep into Russian territory will now be authorized. Ube Shabander, Washington, D.C., A News.
German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has confirmed that Western countries allied to Ukraine are no longer imposing range limits on arms deliveries to Kyiv. Speaking at a digital conference in Berlin, Merz said there are no longer any restrictions on the range of weapons provided to Ukraine by Berlin, Paris, London and Washington. He added that this means that Ukraine can defend itself by striking military positions in Russia. Previously, our Andy Meoch discussed recent developments in the Russia-Ukraine war and German Chancellor Merz's statement that Kyiv no longer faces any range limits on weapons delivered by its Western allies. He spoke with Victor Rudd of the Ukrainian-American Bar Association, who explained under what circumstances this could make a real difference.
But the real difference will be made only if the West, including the United States, understands what the war is all about. It's not a territorial dispute. It's not a border dispute. And if they straighten out their spine and have a purpose and a goal, the purpose and the goal has to be to enforce 70, 80 years of international agreements that Russia also agreed to in terms of the sovereignty of nations and the sanctity of territory. If we don't have that change in our mindset here in the West, then this will continue to be a a bit of a circus, unfortunately a tragic one, that has been going on actually now not just since February of 22, but since 2014. The United States and Trump being an advocate for Russia instead of being a mediator, rewarding Russia instead of imposing sanctions. And after this long and bloody history, my interpretation of Trump's reaction is essentially consistent with how he addressed other issues where he has failed, including on domestic policy, and that is to always blame somebody else. He pretends he's surprised. Well, what is the reason for his surprise? I cannot believe that he did not have the same information that I have as a civilian about what has been happening in Ukraine and what Russia has been doing. And he acts as if this is something new. I view this at this point, until action supports words, I view this as an attempt to deflect attention away from his own personal failure and blame it on some big change that Putin has undergone. Putin has undergone through no changes whatsoever.
At least one person was killed and 2 others injured after Russian shelling in Ukraine's Sumy region, according to a statement by Ukraine's State Emergency Service on Monday. Firefighters say they tackled fires in several buildings. It was reported that the blazes were caused by Russian strikes using cluster munitions. The governor of Sumy region says Russian forces have captured 4 villages near the Ukrainian border and are attempting to create a buffer zone there. Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan held talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow. The discussions focused on resolving the Ukraine conflict and strengthening bilateral ties, according to the Turkish Foreign Ministry. Both sides reviewed recent peace efforts, including developments after Istanbul talks on the 16th of May, and also discussed economic and energy cooperation. 47 people have been injured, including 4 children, after a car drove into a crowd during the Liverpool Football Club's Premier League victory parade. The driver was arrested at the scene.
A tragic incident marred Liverpool Football Club's Premier League title victory parade on Monday evening when a car drove into a crowd of fans on Water Street in the heart of the city, injuring 47 people, including 4 children. The driver, a 53-year-old British man from Liverpool, was arrested at the scene. Emergency services responded swiftly, with 27 individuals hospitalised, 2 of whom are in serious condition, while another 20 were treated at the scene. 4 people, including a child, were rescued from beneath the vehicle. Eyewitnesses described the vehicle accelerating deliberately into the crowd, causing chaos and panic. Police say they're not treating the incident as terrorism.
What I can tell you is that we believe this to be an isolated incident, and we are not currently looking for anyone else in relation to it. The incident is not being treated as terrorism.
The local city council says the incident has marred the whole weekend.
It's cast a very dark shadow over what had been a joyous day for the city and the finale to a fabulous bank holiday weekend.
Prime Minister Keir Starmer condemned the incident as appalling and praised the swift response of emergency services. Liverpool FC, along with other football figures and political leaders, expressed solidarity with the victims and emphasised the city's resilience. The day was meant to be a celebration for Liverpool, marking their record-tying 20th top-flight title.
Armenia said it's ready to host the next ministerial meeting of the 3+3 platform. The Armenian Foreign Ministry noted they will inform the public once the date and place of the meeting are decided. Earlier, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said at a joint press conference with Armenian Foreign Minister Ararat Mirzoyan that the third 3+3 meeting is being planned. Lavrov proposed holding the next meetings in Baku and Yerevan. The platform is intended to help the South Caucasus countries work together and support regional cooperation. The platform also includes Russia, Turkey and Iran. Armenia's Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan said peace with Azerbaijan is near and pledged to amend the constitution if the country's top court blocks the peace agreement. Speaking alongside the Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico at the Yerevan Dialogue 2025 forum, Pashinyan said he's confident that there will be no war, adding that he's committed to continue efforts toward a lasting peace that could transform the region. Fico spoke on the need to finalise the normalisation process for regional stability and invited Pashinyan to visit Slovakia.
Expanding our trade, especially in the areas of nuclear.
France considers the signing of a peace agreement between Azerbaijan and Armenia important, according to the French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot. During his visit to Yerevan, Barrot said that the South Caucasus region is an important communication hub for Europe. Following Barrett's meeting with his Armenian counterpart, 3 documents were signed, including provisions for annual political consultations between the foreign ministries, cooperation in combating disinformation, and training of diplomats. Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has expressed his country's support for Iran's right to a peaceful and civilian nuclear program. The statement came during his official visit to Tehran on Monday, where he met with Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian. The 2 leaders agreed to strengthen ties in areas they both care about, such as improving trade and attracting investment, and say they'll work together for regional peace and security. At a joint press conference, Sharif said the talks were productive and useful, and that they covered all important topics. Tehran is the second stop on Sharif's 4-country trip. He started in Istanbul and will also visit Azerbaijan and Tajikistan, aiming to improve relations and to discuss regional and global issues. Kazakhstan and China have agreed to enhance the capacity and speed up logistics at their shared border. Delegations from both countries visited border points and announced measures to simplify border crossings. Fariza Kalimurzina has more.
Border cooperation between Kazakhstan and China is reaching a new level. In the first 4 months of this year, over 238,000 vehicles passed through checkpoints, a 41% increase compared to the same period in 2024. The delegations visited the Nurzholo and Korgo sites, where they assessed infrastructure and discussed ways to improve it. Following the visit, it was decided to extend round-the-clock operation of the crossings until the end of June next year. Currently, up to 650 vehicles pass through Nurzholo daily, and by September this number is expected to double. One key step is the mutual recognition of X-ray images from inspection complexes. This will speed up cargo screening and reduce waiting times at the border. Another priority is the reconstruction of the border bridge between Nurzholo and Korgos. The 2 countries also agreed to intensify customs cooperation and hold regular working meetings. These agreements are expected to strengthen the region's transit potential, speed up delivery of goods, and ensure stable trade within international transport corridors. Today, Central Asia is becoming an important market for Chinese cars and a hub for their assembly. Demand for affordable vehicles is growing, and governments are keen to attract investments from Chinese companies. New Chinese cars already account for 39% of the Kazakh market. Fariza Kalimurzina, A News, in Almaty, Kazakhstan.
Uzbekistan announced it aims to grow IT service exports to $1 billion by 2025 and $5 billion by 2030. The goal was presented at the M360 Eurasia Forum, hosted for the first time in Tashkent. The event gathered international experts to discuss internet accessibility, sustainable digital growth, and stronger ties between governments and tech sectors. The United Nations World Food Programme warned that Afghanistan's economy is collapsing and that 1/3 of the population is at risk of hunger. They appealed for a little more than $500 million to support the most vulnerable parts of the population. Our Tamim Bahis has more in Kabul.
A growing hunger and nutrition crisis in Afghanistan is putting millions of lives at risk. The WFP says it urgently needs $555 million to continue its operations over the next 6 months. According to WFP, nearly 15 million people, almost a third of the population, need emergency food assistance just to survive. Right now, the WFP can only reach just over 6 million, leaving more than 8 million people without help, including over 2 million women and children. 8 in 10 Afghan families can't afford a minimally nutritious diet, and 3 in 4 are forced to borrow money just to buy basic groceries. This crisis hits women and children hardest. WFP expects 3.5 million children under 5 to suffer from malnutrition this year, a figure not seen in 4 years. Already, 1.2 million pregnant and breastfeeding women are malnourished and urgently need support. Last year, WFP assisted nearly 10 million women and children, treating 1 million mothers and 1.4 million children for malnutrition. But severe funding cuts are forcing the agency to scale back. Children under 2 now receive support, while older toddlers go without. Pregnant women are getting only half of the food they need. Without urgent action and funding, the World Food Programme warns that a generation of Afghan children could face permanent health consequences or worse. The time to act, they say, is now. This is Tamim Bahiz in Kabul for A News.
Now for some uplifting news. A father of a 3-year-old that beat leukemia in Turkey took to social media and called on his fellow townspeople to celebrate with the family, as he said they don't have many friends. Little did he know thousands would turn up.
This isn't a concert, it's not a protest, and no, there's no big sale happening. These thousands of people in Istanbul are here to celebrate one small but very brave superhero. Meet Ali Asaf Demir. He was diagnosed with leukemia at just 8 months old. But after a bone marrow transplant and 2 years of tough treatment, he's officially a survivor. Ali's dad Samet didn't have a huge circle of friends to celebrate with. So instead, he asked the internet. The call touched hearts far beyond the family's doorstep. The local municipality in Sancaktepe got involved, and suddenly it wasn't just a balloon release, it was a full-blown celebration of life. Thousands gathered, balloons were released, the sky was filled with colour, and for the Demir family, hope.
These are the updates for the hour. Stay with us on A News for more world news throughout the day.